you're watching the Screaming Fish here, people, and once again I'm here for you guys with yet another video, and this time, as you can tell by the clearly very obvious title under the screen, we are looking at The Predator, which is one of, if not my most anticipated movies of this year. So instead of doing the usual thing where I ramble on for 40 seconds and tell a bunch of jokes, I'm just going to jump straight into the video because I have a lot to say about this movie, to be honest, so anyway, without further ado, let's go and review The Predator. The Predator was one of my most anticipated movies of this year, mainly because I am a really huge fan of Predator. The first film, which came out in 1987, is one of my favourite movies of all time, and it is a film I rewatch a lot. I'd say that it's within the top 5 movies I have seen the most. And you know what? Even though they're not as good as that original movie, I also like Predator 2, Predators, and I even have a soft spot for the first AVP movie. Although with that said, out of the Predator movies I actually like, that's definitely the hollowest. But that's a video for another time. For now anyway, we're here to talk about the latest installment in the franchise, very originally titled The Predator, which is written and directed by Shane Black, who in fact played the character Hawkins in the first Predator movie. So you can imagine how excited I got just hearing that information, and I was so confident that this would be a terrific film. But The Predator is the most disappointing movie I have seen all year. No, I am not over-exaggerating. I did not like this movie. No, scratch that, I really did not like this movie. There is an argument that says that I went into this expecting too much from a Predator movie. But here's the thing. This is a Predator movie made by the guy who made The Nice Guys. So my question is, how do you go from that to this? So I guess we'll start off with the characters, and they're a mixed bag to say the least. Boyd Holbrook is a likeable lead. He does have some very good lines in the film, and in all honesty, he did the best with what he had, which really wasn't all that good, but despite that, he was charismatic and charming enough to keep me engaged in his performance. Sterling K. Bryan was suitably over the top and made for a very entertaining villain. He doesn't get too much to do, but when he's on screen, he's great. His character is basically an a-hole who absolutely loves being an a-hole, and I love that. The amount of charisma he brings to this role cannot be overstated. He was a true highlight. There's not a single bad thing I could say about his performance. Trevante Rhodes was easily my favourite part of this movie. A lot of his jokes hit, and out of the main group of characters, he was definitely the most interesting character. He was one of the only characters that made me want to see him get out of this alive, and his dynamic with the other loonies, as they're called, particularly Boyd Holbrook, was fantastic. And that's actually one of the saving graces of this movie. The camaraderie between this group of characters and the way they bounce off each other is utterly delightful, whether they're just having a conversation with each other or even having a small comedic moment. This is actually a pretty funny movie when the jokes land. There were some jokes that made me cringe or just had me staring at the screen with a completely blank and expressionless face, but when the jokes hit, they were great. However, the downside is that a lot of the characters in this movie are just sidelines so the Predators can have someone to brutally murder at some point in the film. Yes, every character has a trait that defines them in some way, but many of them are given character development through small, rushed exposition scenes which just feel like lazy attempts to make us care for them. One of the things that I love the most about the first Predator movie is that this elite task force of hardened, incredibly macho and fierce dudes with muscles that make guys like me look like stick insects were terrified of this thing that was picking them off one by one. And you could see it in their eyes. Here, no one is even fazed. Everyone's just cracking jokes and one-liners. They never seem like they're actually afraid. They all just seem excited to fight the Predator and the Super Predator and the Predator dog and all the other dumb things in this movie. There are even characters in this movie who have never murdered someone in their entire life, killing people without a shred of remorse or guilt, and yeah, they're in a life or death situation, but you'd think there would be a moment where they'd sit down and think, oh god, I just killed someone. But no, they just act like everything is just this big, exciting school field trip or something along those lines. This movie alters the mythology of the Predator franchise in a way that I think is going to peeve off a lot of people in the same way it peeved me off. The whole plot of this movie is centered around the idea that the Predators are coming to Earth to evolve and genetically alter themselves to become the strongest beings in the universe. It's an interesting concept, I'll give it that, but the way it's utilized in this film basically makes everything the Predators did in the other movies look senseless, and it actually messes up the mythology quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't completely ruin the other movies. I can still watch those and have a ton of fun. It's just that this movie messes with the mythology of those movies too much, and now it's pretty screwed up. In fact, this whole movie is just a giant screwed up mess. There are so many things that happen and things that the characters do that just do not make sense at all. There are scenes in this movie where people get their hands on Predator technology and somehow instantly know how to use it, despite the fact that it's an alien technology that most of them haven't even seen before, and that's just a result of lazy screenwriting, which is one of the many reasons I struggle to believe that this is a movie written and directed by Shane Black. The plot feels rushed and underdeveloped. Things happen so quickly that there's no time to even process what's even going on. Sometimes it's even noticeable when something has been cut out. There are a few points in the movie where I thought it was missing a scene, which I know may be the result of the extensive reshoots that this film went through before its release, but still, the lack of continuity in certain scenes sticks out more than Batman's bat nipples. This movie isn't even competently shot. A lot of the time we're given some really lame and boring looking shots of characters just shooting at creatures that just pop up in front of them, coupled with a really bland looking colour palette that does nothing but make everything look dull and uninteresting. And the increasingly choppy editing doesn't do this movie any favours either. They even use the same shot twice at one point. I can't completely trash this movie, it isn't all bad. There are a couple of entertaining sequences, especially the sequence where the featured Predator, aka the classic Predator, is in this research facility, cutting everyone inside to pieces. That was awesome. In fact, the costume for the normal Predator is awesome. The facial prosthetics and the makeup look and move fantastically. Yeah, I guess that's it. As for the other two creatures in this movie, those being the Upgrade and the Predator Dog, they're not good. The Super Predator just ends up being just a bigger version of the Predator that doesn't really do anything to set itself apart from any of the other Predators we've seen in this franchise, other than being significantly stronger than those Predators. It largely uses all the same tactics and weaponry with one or two exceptions. There are some shots of the Super Predator that look pretty good, but a lot of the time he just feels like a giant CGI video game boss fight. While the design for the Predator Dog looks really goofy and just plain dumb, the CGI for the Predator Dog strangely looks better than the Upgrade Predator. I honestly have no idea how that happened. I mean, you'd think they'd spend more time and money on the Upgrade Predator, considering he's got more screen time than the Predator Dog, but nope. However, outside of the creature effects, the CGI is fairly mediocre to say the least. Whenever there's an explosion in this movie, I feel like I'm watching the intro to a PS3 game, and it just completely destroyed the illusion. For some reason, there was also a heavy use of CGI blood, which again did not look anywhere near realistic, and neither does the green screen. The green screen in this movie looks about as good as a green screen in Spider-Man 3. And no, that is not a compliment. The action, minus a couple of decent sequences, is also a letdown. It's largely just characters standing in front of things and just shooting at them, and nothing particularly interesting happens. The ending of this movie is hilarious. I actually burst out laughing. It just blew my mind. When the credits started rolling, I just sat there trying to convince myself that what I just watched actually happened. As a huge fan of Shane Black, as well as a huge fan of Predator, I am massively disappointed. It's actually staggering to me how many bad choices are made based off a filmmaking perspective, as well as a storytelling perspective. It's easily the worst of the main Predator franchise, and I would even say I like the first Alien vs. Predator movie more than this film. That is something I never imagined I would say about this movie. But that's how I felt walking out. The Predator gets a 3 out of 10. So, those are my thoughts on The Predator. I do hope you enjoyed this video. I don't really need to tell you again that I really did not like this movie. I really did think it was a pile of crap. But anyway, I would just like to ask you guys, what did you think of The Predator? Did you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? Did you think it was somewhere in the middle? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. But before you go, please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. And, yeah. See you next one. Goodbye.